Welcome to the first episode of Cactus Chats. I'm your host, Dave Sokolowski. I'm here today with Jack Eichenlaub.
That's right.
Our new Boys of Wilmington head age group coach. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks. Well, thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Glad to be a part of Wilmington. Glad to have you on the team.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. And for your first piece of WOW apparel, quite apropos for the times, your very own WOW face mask.
Thank you.
Face covering, yeah.
Thanks. That's
Wear it with pride, yeah. There you go,
There you
man.
go.
Perfect, yeah.
Got it.
Keeping them safe, Jack. Keeping them safe.
Always.
So yeah, welcome to Wilmington. How did you enjoy the first beach meet we had last weekend?
It was awesome. It seemed like a lot of fun. Seemed like the kids had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Got a good workout out there too.
Got to meet the coaches and parents, a couple of kids and everything.
Yep. Got a good feel for the team and the atmosphere, and it was a good day.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun for sure.
Yeah.
So Jack, tell me what got you interested in swimming and coaching?
Well, I started swimming kind of late. I started swimming when I was 13. I was kicking and screaming the whole way there.
Nice.
But I fell in love with it right away. It was summer league, and I really enjoyed the coach. My first coach, she really Vicky Swanson. She was awesome. First thing I'll never forget was streamline. She got into a streamline position, and I thought that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen.
Nice.
And I thought, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And from then on, I kind of just started becoming a student of the sport. It happened to be that summer I started swimming was 2004.
Okay.
So it was the Athens Olympics.
Oh, nice.
So I wasn't really that very good of a swimmer, but I was also one of 4 13-year-old boys on our team, so I got to be on the relays and stuff. And it was just a really fun environment to be a part of, and I fell in love with the sport. Summer league at 13 years old.
Where was this at? Was this in Philadelphia?
Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I had played baseball my entire life, and it was just something different.
Phillies fan?
Yep,
Yeah,
huge Phillies fan. Was there for every game of
John
the
Kruk
playoffs.
and Lenny Dykstra?
John Kruk. My first word was Kruk. I loved Kruk.
Wow,
John Kruk.
funny.
I had the mullet when I was little too.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah. I love John Kruk.
Very cool.
Big baseball fan, big baseball family on my dad's side, and then I transitioned to swimming. Not right away. I'd done a lot of different sports. I really attribute that to it's just I was able to do a lot of different sports. I played baseball my entire life, but I also played football, wrestled, did the whole soccer, basketball thing when I was little.
Nice.
But swimming was late, and I really enjoyed it. It was something that was a challenge for me. It was something different and something I wasn't that great at. So it made me want to get better at it because my friends were much better at it because they started younger, and it made me want to really try harder.
Yeah.
And the Olympics sold me. Michael Phelps was on the scene.
That's when he first started coming out, right? Yeah.
Right, yeah. That was his second Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, he took. I think he had 5 golds in that Olympics, and that sold me. And then I started coaching myself in order to get better. My mom recorded like every race that I ever did, so I started coaching myself to make myself better.
Nice.
And obviously that was all cosmetic and what it looked like on the surface, and really probably wasn't helping me that much.
Yeah.
But it got me started in that.
In the sport.
Right. It was satisfying to watch the race and be able to make a critique and make the change and then see the change.
Sure.
And see improvement, right? And I just started helping out with my summer league team, and then that grew into I ended up swimming in high school and college, and I coached all throughout that. Became a head summer league coach when I was in college, and really just fell in love. That's how I figured out that was my passion, and just needed to figure out a way to grow that into a career. And since I graduated from Bloomsburg University in 2014, I've kind of been just trying to build that coaching career, and now I'm in North Carolina coaching club.
Yeah, very cool.
And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So what do you think growing up playing those other sports, do you feel it helped you as you transitioned to swimming? Having that athletic background?
Yes, especially wrestling.
Yeah.
Because I would equip the amount of commitment and training that you have to do is pretty equal, both sports, just one's with gravity and one's holding your breath.
Sure.
And physically, that mentality that I had to have to push through those workouts definitely helped me tremendously, as well as the strength part. Being strong and athletic helped me be dynamic in the water, more immediate than a swimmer that's been swimming since they were like little and trying to figure it out.
Sure.
So that part of the dynamic and athletic part of the swimming was there. It was just the figuring out how to be better and be
Be
faster.
efficient at it and technical aspect, yeah.
And the different strokes, obviously,
Yeah.
too.
So when you got into swimming from the other sports, did you feel, was there a big learning curve there? Or what was the biggest challenge as far as transition from like land sports to a water sport?
Believing that I wasn't going to die.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge thing. It was just like, you're not going to die if you breathe every 3.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to die if you if you hold your streamline past the flags.
Sure.
Like, don't breathe in the first
Yeah.
stroke.
It's a couple seconds, right?
Yeah. Like the flip turn thing, like I wasn't doing flip turns at practice. Like, why would I do that? I can do it better this way. And it's like, no, you got to learn how to do it this way.
Yeah.
So that was a huge learning curve.
That's cool.
For sure.
So you thought about, after college, getting into coaching. Where'd you start at? Would you start in club? What was your kind of career path?
So in college, I had been coaching summer league, and then after that, I was being asked more towards the age group stuff because I had a lot of energy, was young, and little kids loved it and everything. But I really wanted to do college coaching.
Okay. Roscoe. Sorry guys, that's the old pup making a scene. All right, yeah. So college coaching. Yeah.
So college coaching, and then so I figured out how do I get into that. So I figured the only way to do that was to be either an assistant at some school that was going to be really small and I didn't know where I was going to be, or become a graduate assistant and get a because in order to become a head coach, you kind of really need a master's in college.
Yeah.
So the idea was get a master's and some college coaching experience, that took me to Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale. So I was there for 2 years as a graduate assistant.
Okay.
I studied college student affairs.
Okay.
But mostly I studied swimming and coaching.
Yeah.
But I did, I really benefited from that degree a lot. It's taught me a lot of the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And just the development and maturity of more young adults, and what the issues that they really struggle with on that transition. And so that's was the college aspect of it, was really what I wanted to do.
Right.
I had volunteered at Bloomsburg, then I was at Nova Southeastern as a graduate assistant. Then that head coach got a job at Miami, Ohio, and asked me to go with her as a recruiting coordinator, which I had no idea how to do, but it was kind of just like, all right, let's see how it works.
Yeah. Say yes to everything, right?
Right. I mean, it was, I hadn't even finished my degree yet, and it was being offered a D1 job. That was what I needed, right? Turns out I don't really like Ohio.
Okay.
Wasn't really the place for me, personally. So I ended up going back I hadn't finished my degree, so I went back to Florida, and ended up volunteering with Florida Gulf Coast University for the year.
Okay.
And finishing up my degree at Nova. Still. So while I was doing that, I was volunteer with Dave Rollins at FGCU, and I ran the sprint group, which was pretty cool. He gave me a group, which was awesome.
That's cool, yeah.
And while I was doing that, I was obviously volunteer, wasn't making much money, so I coached the club team, a Gulf Coast swim team on the side.
Okay.
I was a very novice group, but I also got to work with some of the senior groups as well, because I was already on deck from the college teams.
Okay.
And
you guys shared a facility then?
Yeah, we shared the facility. And then my novice group was at a different pool, but that's fine. I went back and forth, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
That novice group I had, my best swimmer was 5 years old, and it was kids ranging from 5 to 15.
Oh wow.
I had a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old autistic kids, and then I had 5 and 6-year-olds were my best swimmers on the bottom end, and then in between there was 11 and 12s and 13s and all in there. They're
broad
all
spectrum, huh?
Very broad spectrum,
yeah.
and that taught me a lot of patience.
Sure.
But it also taught me like what's fun for them, what's gonna make them better, and what's gonna keep them engaged, and that made me start thinking. And I had fun with it, And after being in the college grind for a while, recruiting and all that, it's a 24/7 thing. I kind of lost where my passion was in that sport, and coaching those kids allowed me to get that passion out of it a little bit.
Oh, nice, very cool.
And it kind of was like, maybe I need to look at club swimming more seriously. And I finished my degree, and I was looking for a job, and I was applying for college jobs and club jobs, and ended up at Adam.
Okay.
In Charlotte.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a great deal. It allowed me to coach the 9 and 10-year-olds at the same time as coaching the high school kids. And it was a great balance. I was able to get the best of both worlds as far as training young adults and turning them into leaders and better people. And then on the other side, I'm teaching kids passion and how to love the sport and how to race and have fun.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so it sounds like you've learned a lot from each one of those positions, no matter if it was college or club.
Oh, absolutely.
Having different coaches that you've worked with probably learned a lot from those guys as well.
Yep, I learned a lot of what to do and what not to do
Yeah.
in both scenarios.
Which are both important lessons, right?
Both important lessons.
Yeah.
I think that it's important that the leadership, I'm always being mentored by somebody that has that same kind of philosophy behind you, and making sure that you're, in order to build and work together in a synergistic, is that a word?
Yeah.
In that kind of way, you need to kind of be on that same wavelength, and be able to hold each other accountable too. And I think one of the biggest things I take away from part of philosophy, which we'll get into in a second, I'm sure, but is self-accountability. And we teach these kids to be, your success is based off of you, like what you're doing, and you're accountable for your own success. And in the same breath, as a coach, you got to be able to be accountable for your own actions, and as well as you need to be able to hold people accountable as well in order to make them better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of the development through swimming.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you, you're saying like if a kid wants to be, say, junior national level, for example, or an older kid, and this is where I want to be, coach. Okay, well, you're not coming to practice, you're not streamlining off your walls. That's where that accountability piece comes in, right?
Correct.
And that's your job to help hold them accountable to their own goals.
Right.
That's self-accountability, but also in the coaching role, to remind them of what that means, right?
Right.
If you have these goals, that's awesome. We're here to support you. However, it's up to you to do all the steps to achieve those goals.
Right. Right. So if I'm saying, hey, streamline past your wall, and it was the third or fourth or fifth time that I'm saying it, I'm not saying it to let you know that you're not doing it. You already know that you're not doing it. I'm telling you to remind you that in order to get to where you want to go, that's what you need to do.
And those important little things, the details for sure.
Absolutely.
All those details add up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about a little bit of philosophy. So what do you would say is, through studying the coaches that you've coached under, the kids that you've coached, where does your philosophy come from, and what is that philosophy in a general broad sense?
So in a general sense, I'm very much from a teaching perspective. I think practice is very similar to your classroom, and coach is the teacher, kids are the students, and in order for there to be success, you need to show up every day on time, you need to work hard, and you need to listen. And those three things add up to success.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the first part of it. And you need those three things in order to put you in a position to be successful.
Very cool.
And from a general perspective, I think pursuing excellence, right? Not perfection, but excellence. You don't have to be perfect every time. You don't have to be excellent every time. You don't always have to go a best time every time. The idea is that you have to always be in pursuit of being better.
Right.
And instilling that into everything that you do. Because any day you come in the pool, your goal is to get better.
Sure. If it's that much better
Move
every
the
day.
needle a little bit.
Incremental, yeah.
Right.
So with that kind of broad general philosophy, how would you then kind of dial that in for, say, an 8-number group, for kind of a beginner, introductory type group? These kids all know strokes, of course, and they can swim, but they're 8-number. So how do you teach those guys about the swimming philosophy?
How do you make an 8-year-old swim fast?
Right, yeah. Not necessarily swim fast, but how do you kind of ingrain your philosophy within those 7 and 8, 6-year-old kids?
Repetition. I'll do a lot of you repeat after me. One of the things when there's a close race, we'll practice finishes, and I'll be like, all right, head down, kick hard, don't look back. Repeat after me. Head down, kick hard, don't look back.
Nice.
Make them repeat that mantra in their head so that they have that in their head when things do get hard.
Right.
Turns. Some kids are really good at those turns, but they can't push off they're supposed to push off like a rocket. I need you to push off like a rocket. Say it back. Push off like a rocket. Push off like a rocket. So that way, when they do their turn, they're thinking, I got to push off like a rocket.
Right.
And that sense of making these cue words for them to realize this is where it needs to happen. And I think that's fun for them, and it's engaging, and it gives them that racing part of it too, because that's really the fun part. The fun part is competition, getting better, being with your friends, and you can do those things at the same time as getting better. Through those kinds of stuff. But
that's great. Yeah. Just kind of keeping them engaged more or less, right? So they're
so they need to be engaged.
You're having that connection, that back and forth. So you're aware if a kid is spaced out, or if the eye connection's there, eye contact.
Right.
If they're not paying attention, they're going to know that mantra, or those cue words you're talking about.
Correct.
So I love that how you are encouraging them, or I don't want to say forcing them to, but expecting them is probably a better word, to repeat those things whenever you're saying them out loud, and that's how you know you have that engagement with those kids and they're learning. Is that
right.
what I'm hearing?
Correct. Because then, if I do that 1 week, then a couple weeks from now, we won't do it, and then I'll throw it in there every once in a while, and I'll make them repeat back. And the idea is I shouldn't have to tell them exactly what to do. They should know that.
They've retained that, hopefully.
Correct.
Yeah.
When I've ingrained that, the first couple weeks is kind of like, hey, what are we doing today? We're here to get better. Got it. Okay. Well, a couple months from now, I'm gonna stop asking, and then one of these days, I'm like, when you're having a bad day, I'm gonna ask you, what's the goal for today? Get better. Okay. How are we gonna do that today?
Nice.
And I think having that mentality and being like, okay, having that purpose, right, each day, that objective each day, that's being engaged. You're walking through the door. We're here to have fun. We're here to get better, and we can do both at the same time.
Very cool. So on that same lines, what would you say is the 3 most important things for an 800 type group to take away from the season?
I think it's important for them to be passionate about swimming. They should want to come to practice.
Okay.
They should want to come to practice is the biggest thing. They should be having fun. Those 2 things right off the top.
Yeah.
Having fun, wanting to come to practice, and being able for them to see themselves getting better. I think that's really important too, because they could do all the drills they want, but if they can't see that improvement, it could be as simple as gliding further off their walls in a streamline, like being able to show them that improvement. And I think streamline is a big thing too, and understanding what streamline means. So if they're wanting to come to practice and they're having fun, they're going to want to learn.
Right.
And that learning part of it is how to get faster.
Yeah.
And there's different ways to do that. And
Sure.
I think them understanding how to get faster, whether it's knowing that you need to be in streamline, or we talk about drag and reducing drag, and then feeling the force and being able to use different things from what they know as 8 and unders to rationalize that in their head.
Right.
So I think that's fun for me as a coach, but I think that's fun for them too, and that's engaging. So you said 3 things, right? So,
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I like those. Yeah, fun for sure.
Fun. Wanting to come to
practice is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Almost, them dragging their parents to practice versus the other way around, right?
Correct.
Correct. We can't miss it. I got practice. Mom's telling me to go.
Correct.
Yeah,
and that goes back to those 3 things I said before, which was show up.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, and work hard.
Sure. Yeah.
And you practice those 3 things. With those 3 things, that's where it adds up.
And you talked about learning and showing them some sort of sense of accomplishment, right? And what I didn't hear you say was we show them accomplishment by best times. I heard you say things like
we don't.
Streamlining, reducing drag, things that are maybe, I guess, more tangible things, but less measurable, right?
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think that's really important for those little kids, is especially that 7, 8-year-old age, when they're having fun, they don't need to worry about if they win a best time or if they drop time from the last meet. They need to be more concerned about being there, engaged, having their friends to have fun, but also making sure that they're getting reinforced with, you did a great job on that streamline, those flip turns were awesome,
right.
Your breathing pattern was superb. Things like that I think go a long way for those kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think positive encouragement one way or the other, and I think the biggest question I would ask them after the race was, did you give your best effort? Did you give your best effort? Because that's pursuing excellence, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's the question you ask them. Because if it wasn't a good race, sometimes it's just bad race. Everybody has bad races, right? But if they didn't give their best effort, that's where it's kind of like, okay,
that's a teachable moment,
right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. We didn't give our best effort. That's why you didn't go better. You didn't get better,
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you did go the same time, but at least this time you held your streamlines and you didn't breathe off the walls. Like next time you do that, now you can make that faster.
Yeah.
Now that you've learned the skill, now that you've executed the skill of not breathing off your walls on your turns.
When it counts in a meet.
When it counts
Yeah.
in a meet, you can now execute that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll make it faster because now you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think, that's how you do it.
I like it, man. Showing up, learning, having fun.
Yep. Showing up, learning, having fun, working hard. Yep.
Something us adults could probably do the same thing of too, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So kind of switching gears a little bit to the 11-12 group, what would you say, kind of how your global philosophy, how would you then kind of pare that down for those 11-12 kids?
So I think that you need to get more specific. 11 and 12 need to be a little bit more specific and more detailed oriented, in the sense that they should have some of those basic skills already down, and it's mastering those skills and being able to train at the level. Because at 11 and 12, their bodies are changing. They're probably doing a few more events than they're used to doing. They're practicing more. All those things are added on top of it. So you gotta make sure that, one, they're comfortable and you're building their confidence one way or the other. Whether it's getting faster or whatnot, they need to be able to perform those skills that they practiced at 9 and 10 and 8 and under, and be able to master them in a training environment. They don't have to master it by the end of the time, but the idea is you got to get them ready to train hard.
Right.
While working on their skills that they've been working on since they were little, and perfecting and mastering them, so that they don't have to worry about those little details like breathing off the wall, or breathing every 3, or doing 2 dolphin kicks past the flags. They don't have to worry about those things when they turn 13 and 14, and then they train. They don't have to think about those things.
Right.
That part of it's gone. They can just worry about working hard and going faster. And I think being able to lay down the groundworks for them to be able to train at a high level with good technique and skills. Because there's a lot of kids that end up being able to get through when they're little because they've matured physically or mentally and are at a different level when they're 12, but they don't continue to grow because they haven't established those really good training habits. So when they go to train hard, or when they get older, they end up getting injured, or they get in a rut where they just can't get past a certain time or an event because they lack the skills.
Those kind of baseline skills.
Right,
yeah,
because they've limited their stroke, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have a good range of motion when they're 11 and 12, and then they don't carry that over when they're 13, 14. They're still not going to be able to do the same skills that they weren't able to do.
Yeah.
So I think being able for them to be able to do those skills under stress and in a training environment at 11 and 12, that's really important for that.
Yeah.
And building on top of what they did when they were 9 and 10.
Right, because the skills don't really change a whole lot, right?
No, the skills are always the same.
Kids in 7, 8 are the things that the kids are doing when they're 17, 18.
Right,
Different levels of excellency, if you will, I guess, or mastery.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
So there might be certain things that I might let an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old get away with in a drill. Let's just say like right side kick, left side kick. Mm-hmm. Right? There might be a skill that I'm not looking for, like I'm only looking for a head position and a steady kick maybe for an 8-year-old.
Right.
9 and 10-year-old, I'm looking for their arm extended in the right way, where their hand position is and where their hips are. And when they're older, I'm even looking for something more. I'm looking for them to set it up and add on to that skill.
More core engagement, maybe, the bracing of the core.
Correct. And then transitioning that into, okay, now that you perfected this way with this skill, the way it should look, now let's try to refine that into a more dynamic skill.
Sure, adapt that body position kick into an actual freestyle stroke.
Correct.
Yeah, nice. So the 11, 12s then, it sounds like what I'm hearing is it's kind of that, almost like a bridge between kind of that when you're a younger kid, learning the skills, learning the fundamentals. You still want to have fun, obviously. And then when you're 13, 14 plus and that kind of more of that training load, that's sort of that transition period or transition from just learning more of a teaching type model to a training type model. Is that accurate? Is that
correct?
Fair? Yeah.
I think it's the pinnacle decision making for an 11, 12-year-old, because they're going to decide whether they want to be a swimmer or whether they just want to swim.
Right.
And there's a difference. And I think that by setting them up into going into the 11 and 12 group, being passionate about swimming, wanting to come to practice and all those things, that's setting them up to want to make that decision for being a swimmer.
Yeah.
Right? And you're allowing them to make that decision on their own at 11 and 12, but at the same time, like, you got to set them up to make that. And they're going to end up taking their own paths, and you got to be able to provide a gateway for success for both those.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is how you want to do it. Well, we can still be good and still love swimming, but not worry about maybe some of the elite level, right? Or the top end of it. But some people are kind of like, yeah, that's really what I want to do. Like, I want to go, like, my goal is to go to junior nationals, go to the Olympics. Some kids aren't going to have that goal, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think you got to be able to provide that safe space for them to be able to figure that out, providing them confidence at both ends, and being able for them to, because they're going through a lot of different things. They're going through middle school, puberty, all that stuff is happening all at the same time, right? And I think that that 11 and 12 group is important because they're gonna decide whether they want to be swimming and have fun with it and continue to progress in the sport. Some of them are just gonna say, I kind of like swimming, I still want to figure this out. And some of them are probably gonna say they don't want to swim anymore.
Yeah.
And my goal is to make them want to swim. My goal is to make them want to be swimmers in some way, right? To stick with the sport, to the next level.
Yeah.
Then they can make that next.
So what are the 3 things you think are most important or most critical to success at the 11, 12 age range?
I think it's the most important thing. They need to have an idea of going into 11 and 12. I think, and for success in that group is body awareness. Mm-hmm. So they're growing, but they need to be able to be aware of where they are in the water, where their bodies, where their hands and feet are, where their head position is. Because if they don't know where they are, it's hard to make the change or the correction from a coach.
Sure.
So body awareness is one thing. 2 is being mentally tough enough to push through some of the harder sets, because as you get older, it's going to be a little bit harder inevitably, but that's the next step, right? And being able to push through the new expectations and building that motivation and building that confidence into it. So building confidence is I would say probably the second part.
Yeah.
And then racing.
Yeah.
Just being able to race, and you're not 10 years old anymore. You got to do more than 50s, or focus more on 50s. Like this is the path you're taking. You need to be willing to challenge yourself in those races, and providing them opportunities to challenge themselves at practice will help with that.
Yeah.
As they take on new challenges, as 12-year-olds start trying newer events. Or as they're progressing through that program, I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're talking about challenges and being mentally tough enough, and that's kind of 2 different things, or 2 things in the same vein. You got to provide the kids with enough confidence to be willing to take those risks initially,
right?
Take on those new challenges,
right. And
also provide them with the support structure to know that it's okay to fail. You're going to fail. We all fail. Depends how you're going to bounce back from that. I think that's true. Is building those mentally tough athletes, or whatever you want to call it, in practice, having confident athletes will certainly help those kids to take those risks and not be afraid to put themselves out there a bit and accept these new challenges.
Correct.
Knowing they might not succeed the first time, but maybe number 7 they do, number 8 they do.
Right.
And just having to keep coming back from that and keep being resilient.
And I think being positive is a huge thing. They need to be positive, they need to be encouraged the whole way through it, as long as they're continuing to give that effort that you want and you expect from them. And I think that being able, as a coach, to understand that each kid's, I like to think of them as popcorn kernels. Each kid's going to pop. They're going to figure stuff out at different rates.
Yeah.
So some kids are going to figure it out. You can't let the kids that don't figure it out get frustrated.
Yeah.
Do
a little more time in the microwave.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It just takes them a little bit more time. Tell them to keep working on it. Don't, if you can tell they're trying to work on it, that's fine. Give them something else to work on,
right, yeah.
For the time being. But I think it's really important that from an individual basis as well in that group, because some kids are going to figure things out before others, and to not, whether it's comparing them, but being being aware of the fact that, hey, they're trying to figure it out. Keep having them try to figure out why that other person's got it figured out. That's great. But that doesn't mean that everybody's going to figure it out at the same time.
Yeah. Talking about racing too, like learning to race, I think that you're absolutely right. That's a real critical age, that 11, 12 age range, to think about that race strategy and how to implement those strategies at your meets, whether it be, a dual meet, inter-squad meet, or your championship meet. Having that awareness of race strategy can certainly help to build confidence, like we talked about earlier, but also just have them, that's something they can focus on. They're dialed into what they need to do every step of the way, not just going through a 200 freestyle, just winging it. It's like,
correct.
I know each 50 what I have to do, how many kickouts off the wall I'm supposed to do, what my breathing pattern is, what kind of effort level I'm giving throughout each 50 to make sure I pace it appropriately, but also not have too much at the end. So a lot goes into those things, and I think that's really important. Those kids begin to learn those race strategies at 11, 12 versus 15, 16, right?
Yeah. Because then they have an idea of it. They have a feel for what it's supposed to feel like when they're racing too. And I think that's really important as they get older, is they have to understand as they're younger, because it's harder to teach them when they get older,
Yeah.
that you need to give everything you've got, like in a race. Or if I say max at practice, like I need to see as fast as you possibly can go.
Yeah.
Like
It should hurt.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts
Yeah.
to swim fast.
Yeah.
And the sooner they realize that, the better.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'll never forget. Like, I remember one time I gave these 10-unders this hard IM set, but I told them, I was like, this is what it's gonna feel like. Like, it's gonna hurt. The end of that 200 IM, that last 50 free should not feel good.
Yeah. Not if you're doing it right. Yeah.
If it feels good, you did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that being able to have that idea and that mindset of pushing through that pain, pushing through that point at 11 and 12 years old pays off a lot at 13, 14. Because that's when and as you get older, because then the races really start to hurt.
Sure.
As you get more muscles and everything
Yeah.
like that. So I think they need to be able to take advantage of the fact that the little wiry kids, and they can let loose.
Recover a little more quickly. Yeah.
And they can race hard.
Yeah. And also knowing that even at championship meets, your focus meets, it still hurts. You might be rested, you might be ready to go, but it doesn't mean it's not gonna hurt.
Correct.
It hurts just as much, if not worse.
Correct.
So, yeah.
The first 50 might feel a little better.
Right. Yeah. But it's still gonna hurt. It's
Right.
still gonna feel bad. Yeah. Shouldn't say feel bad. It's still gonna be painful.
Correct.
In a good way.
Correct.
Yeah.
It feels less painful when you do well.
Correct. Yeah. That kind of washes away more quickly, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I like that, Jack. You talked earlier about the body awareness in the 11, 12-year-olds. Body awareness. So I agree that's a critical thing for kids to understand, like how their body moves in space and in the water. So what kind of things have you found successful in kind of teaching that body awareness or teaching that proprioception?
So we talked about this earlier, but incorporating some of the dry land moves
Yeah.
into practice. So the good example of is the forearm, starting off with a forearm plank. And those are the same core muscles you should be engaging when you're in any body position, any of the strokes. At some point you're in head in line with your spine, head, shoulders, hips in line.
Yeah.
That's the plank. The abs are engaged, shoulders are engaged. Same thing. So if I transition them to kick, body position kick, that's the same core muscles that they're using to kick. So having them do a 25 kick, then hold the plank, 25 kick, hold the plank, 25 kick, hold the plank. They can feel those muscles as they're getting fatigued. They can from the plank, they can feel them being used while they're kicking.
Right,
and it's an immediate connection.
Yeah.
And then moving from that basic one, then you start doing single leg plank, or so then now they're having to do 1 foot, and then also throwing fins and paddles on them where they're doing opposites. So they got like right hand paddle, left foot fin.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're trying to connect those opposites together, because that's really what we're looking for from a swimming perspective, from a leverage perspective.
Yeah.
But the paddle and the fin gives them more surface area to be able to feel where those are.
Sure. Yeah.
And if you're able to do that with equipment on and get the rhythm and the I would say muscle memory down, then they should be able to do that a little bit more without the equipment on. That's kind of the idea.
Yes, you're kind of hitting the boat. You're hitting on land to kind of prep them for it, and then taking that same skill and translating it into the water immediately. So that's the immediate connections there. From I know what my core, my bracing technique feels like. That's the same bracing technique in the water.
Wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
That's the idea of that.
So what about kind of feel for the water? That's a big thing that you hear coaches talk about a lot. Is kids got a great feel for the water, this and that, which is not an untrue statement.
Correct.
And certainly, some kids might have a more natural feel for the water. But what are some ways you think you can kind of train?
And that's hard to really develop.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that sometimes they just come out of the womb being able to grip, just like some kids are able to kick breaststroke.
Right.
Like you don't. But I don't like calling it feel. I like calling it grip.
Okay.
Grip on the water.
Yeah.
And doing sculling patterns.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to scoop and playing with their fingers, playing with water.
Yeah.
And I think allowing younger kids in certain drills where you're just trying to do easy or just trying to get them to go back and forth, it can be fun. Like doing one I like doing is a double arm backstroke. That's a skill. Even though they're having fun and they're just kind of swimming easy, that's a skill for them to have that elbow down, right, and pressing back.
Yeah.
Or I'll let them do this with backstroke kick, so that they're feeling that water, they're feeling that press, that push with the water, and inadvertently they don't realize it, but they're feeling the water, they're finding their grip on the water.
Yeah.
And like I said before, if we're doing right side kick, left side kick, this hand position, pinky down, is kind of where I want, because you can scoop with the pinky and then you grip with the catch. Scoop, grip, scoop, grip. And I think having them play with that in the water is, when they're young especially too, and trying, you give them certain things like don't break the wrists, stuff like that, and having them feel the water.
Nice.
I've played around with an idea of like it's a force, like kind of like a Star Wars thing. I am kind of a Star Wars nerd, a little bit, but like.
Who's your favorite Star Wars character?
Favorite Star Wars character?
Yeah,
ooh.
You said you were a fan.
Yeah, I know, but that's hard.
Okay.
That's hard.
All right, top three.
Top three? No. No. Obi-Wan Kenobi's the man.
Okay.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's the man.
All right. Okay. We'll let you off with that.
Let's settle with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
All right.
But it's the Force. There's the dark side of the Force and the light side of the Force. The dark side of the Force is that drag, right? That's holding you back. Versus the light side of the Force that's that grip force. That's the force that helps you go forward.
Okay.
And playing the dark versus the light, I think is. I know some of my previously, like the boys figured that out pretty well. They're like, oh yeah, I love Star Wars. The girls aren't a big Star Wars fan, so they're not as keen on it. But that's one way for them to play with the water. And
I like that, man. I've never heard that before. That's a cool analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I finding different ways for them to connect that, because you can't really teach. You can't say, I need you to feel the water. I need you to grip the water. That's hard for them to really grasp that. So doing it in different ways. So like the boys figured out force. I think the girls, when we did like underwater kick, we were doing like mermaid kicks and stuff like just different things that are gonna click with different kids.
Yeah.
Because like I said, each kid's different. They're all popcorn kernels. They pop at different times. Some things are gonna click differently with other kids. And it also goes back into showing up every day, because I also think practices, how I at least write my practices, they're like puzzle pieces. If you miss a day, you're missing a puzzle piece. You're not going to get that puzzle piece back.
That full picture's going to be harder to see.
Right. Maybe so it might be a day where we covered a skill that you're really bad at, and you weren't there that day. And that stinks. Maybe you had a good excuse. That's fine. But the idea is that puzzle piece is gone.
Yeah.
And, when you go, at the end of the day, when you're at the last meet, you want to go behind the block with a full puzzle.
Sure, yeah.
With a full toolbox.
Yeah.
That's that confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the more you're at practice, the more skills you learn, the more puzzle pieces you have, the more successful you'll be.
Very cool. So Jack, what has you excited about the ways of Wilmington swim team and taking on this role as head age group coach?
Well, I'm excited about being on deck with other coaches, because my last job I wasn't on deck as much with other coaches, and there wasn't that dynamic of that banter or having a fresh eye for certain swimmers. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about meeting the staff. We've already met the staff, but
getting to know them better,
getting a feel for that, and honestly, just like building those relationships with those kids. I'm excited about starting that, because that's cool. Really what swimming coaching is about. It's about building relationships. And trying to make those kids the best that they can be, swimmers and little people. Yeah. So I think that I'm just really excited about that part of it.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate us getting to know you a little better before we start on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, Jack.
Excited.
Thanks again, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Happy to have you guys. Happy to have you for sure. Well, guys, that's going to wrap our first episode of Cactus Chats. Thank our guest, Jack Eichenlaub. You guys can see him next week on deck. And until then, you guys have a great holiday weekend. Looking forward to the start of the 2020-21 Wild Swim season. All right, guys. Peace.